Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Writers Room podcast. I'm Cam Alberigo, one of the executives for HUM, and today I'm joined here by one of our other executives and senior writer, Brad Patten, and one of our staff writers, Matthew Murphy. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, I'm great. Ready to talk some hoops. How about you, Matt?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Great. Well, I'm ready to dive right in. Today, we're going to be talking a bit about the COVID struggles in the league with the new Omicron variant. It's been a challenge, to say the least, with a lot of teams having to postpone games, not having the minimum number of players. We've seen some older players come back and enter the league just to try to step up, just to have enough bodies to play basketball. But through it all, I definitely say there has been some bright spots. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and the impact of COVID-related absences on the league. So, Matt, I'll turn it over to you to get us started with some of those guys who have come back who were previously done in the league.
Yeah, we've seen guys like Isaiah Thomas, Joe Johnson, Greg Monroe, Brandon Knight, Lance Stevenson, and Darren Collison, just to mention some of the names. It's been interesting to see them come back in the league. Typically, it's very difficult to stumble across opportunity to kind of show what you have left, but they've gotten that opportunity through some COVID absences.
Definitely. And I think they've been the guys who have been filling those roles as just being the bodies needed. So some of the players who benefited from COVID absences, Brad and Matt are going to talk about now. So Brad, if you want to get us started with the first player on your list of who you think's benefited from this challenging time.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, Peyton Pritchard has been doing his thing. Now that he's getting minutes again, which I can't understand still why he wasn't getting minutes in the first place. He's been playing really well as of late. Now he's starting at point guard for them lately. But I see this as more than a temporary thing for them, because I think it should at least help them realize, and the front office realize, that they need a true point guard next to two dynamic wings in Tatum and Brown. You see with like the Chicago Bulls, they have two wings in DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. Neither are great point guards, but you give them someone like Lonzo Ball that can do all the facilitating, and it puts less pressure on them essentially. And the Celtics need that. And Peyton Pritchard's been able to provide that. So he's been a huge guy that I think will help them the rest of this year.
Definitely. And Matt, I know you mentioned Jonathan Kuminga and his newfound role. So what are your thoughts on him during this pandemic?
Kuminga, I feel like, has been given a lot of important experience. Whether the Warriors plan on keeping him or not, I think this could help them decide. But with their tremendous culture over the years, we've seen them do an excellent job integrating, especially late first round picks, even second round picks. But I could see this as being a little bit of a challenge for them. And I think COVID has eased that challenge a little bit with giving them a reason to include him into the lineups, trying him in different lineups that maybe he wouldn't have had exposure to without COVID. If they do decide that they want to move him, it'll be good to have this body of work to show to front offices kind of what they're getting when they're talking trades.
Definitely. I think with the absences of the star players, it's allowed teams to probably get stronger in the end of things, because they're able to find these newfound role players who will be able to step up when the stars maybe are going through a rough time, or when they just really need someone going down the stretch due to potentially injuries or anything like that. And also showcase, like you said. So Brad, I'd like to pass it over to you to talk about Gary Payton and his newfound role.
Yeah, so I mean, another Warrior we got on the list here, and he's been excellent lately. I mean, he's been starting for Jordan Poole. He's really found his offense as of late. Like, before, he was just a defensive guy, and now you're starting to see him score. He's really gained a lot of confidence. And as Matt already mentioned, I mean, the Warriors culture is second to none. And he's really gained a lot of confidence playing there this year and last year. And I think he can be a really or a great role player for them, essentially, especially down the road in the playoffs when you need someone to lock up. They don't have a lot of guys like that on the roster outside of Draymond Green. We'll see what Klay Thompson is when he comes back, but we don't know. We haven't seen him play in a couple years. So Gary Payton, he's really changed my outlook on him. And I think he's going to have a tremendous role for them come playoff time.
Right, definitely. If you're looking for a place to develop during this time period, I definitely pick the Warriors. They with that culture, you're definitely going to get really good development for your future. So Matt, who's next on your list?
I actually have Kemba Walker next on my list, which is a guy that has had a lot of opportunities since entering the league. I won't say he hasn't, but lately he's experienced some bad press surrounding his exclusion from the rotation. But some COVID absences kind of forced Tibbs into a role on the team again. And this was kind of a chance to establish himself in the public eye as maybe not being the entire reason that the team has been struggling.
Definitely another benefit, helping him out, get a better image for himself. Brad, who's next up?
Yeah, for me, I got rookie Brandon Boston Jr. He was a one and done out of Kentucky, and he had a lot of problems at Kentucky. I'll say that. He was a very finesse player. Anytime he drove to the lane, he was fading away. He was not taking it into chest of shot blockers. His jump shot also had a lot of issues, but I saw him start to play. I saw him in a game against the G League Ignite this year, and he played very well. You saw this. I saw a lot of improvement, actually. And then I was not shocked when the Clippers called him up and he started getting more minutes because of these COVID absences. And it's shown how much he's improved, and he's a shot maker, and the Clippers need some. Outside of Paul George, they don't have many of them. So he could be an interesting player to watch the rest of the season.
For sure. It's been beneficial for a lot of rookies to get those opportunities and minutes that might have been taken otherwise by those big name stars. Matt, who's next up to talk about with these COVID absences?
So the next guy I had was Denzel Valentine. I feel as though Denzel Valentine has, Brad, you might want to put on some earmuffs for this one. He hasn't been given an opportunity to play with a team with structure, and he hasn't had the ability to play on a team that is allowing him to play meaningful basketball. But the Cavs are desperate for wings, and he did have some opportunities early in the season, but was kind of starting to fall out of the rotation there in Cleveland. Outside of Chetty Osman and Dean Wade, they really don't have too much at their disposal on the wing. Even Dean Wade is less of a wing and more so a product of their defensive versatility, thanks to guys like Jared Allen, Isaac Okoro, and especially Evan Mobley. But I think they may have something in Denzel for a long-term depth role where he can actually fill some of those minutes, whether it's due to an injury or just their normal rotation.
Before you tell us the next two guys on your list, Brad, I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond to Matt's comments. So go ahead and do that for us.
So yeah, I mean, I saw Denzel a lot, and thank you, Cam. Yeah, I mean, so he's a good player. He's a good IQ for the game, good jump shot, and he's an underrated defender. I'll say that much for how limited he is athletically. He is a very disciplined defender, but for every smart play he makes a boneheaded play, it feels like. So that's where I have a love-hate relationship with him. So, but no, I mean, it's good for him. Good for him that he's found a better culture, if you want to say so, and gain some opportunity.
Brad, if you want to go into the next two guys on your list for
Yeah,
COVID
so the next two on my list are actually Bulls. So I'm just going to combine these two. The Bulls got Matt Thomas, or have had Matt Thomas, and then also the first hardship exemption to be signed to an NBA contract is Alfonso McKinney for the Bulls. And they both provide needs for the Bulls essentially because Matt Thomas, look, with DeMar DeRozan scoring like he is, teams a lot of times have been going zone against the Bulls, and Matt Thomas, shooters are zone killers, and the Bulls didn't have a specialist like that unless you count Zach LaVine, but obviously he can only play so many minutes. You have to stagger the minutes there. So just adding another shooter like that, I think will help them down the road in situational minutes. And then Alfonso McKinney, they needed a taller forward that could stretch the floor. They were stuck playing guys like Derrick Jones Jr., Javonte Green, Tony Bradley, all in the same lineup where they just didn't have a lot of shooting. So I think adding McKinney helps there. So yeah, I think those were both two really sneaky moves. I mean, I guess they've had Matt Thomas, but McKinney especially was a really sneaky move for the Bulls.
For sure. And Matt, to wrap up this segment, I'll let you tell us your last name on the list.
So my last guy is Davis Bertans, which I'm not sure I see this benefiting him as a Wizard, but I could see them including him in a trade. He has been given an opportunity to get minutes, but really I think his value in this time is to get into a better opportunity for himself and get more minutes than, something that he actually deserves, a role that he deserves. And Washington already has a lot of depth on the wing, a lot of youth, but I could see Bertans' contract being a really good cap filler and a potential consolidation trade for them to bring in a guy that can play alongside Bradley Beal long-term.
For sure. And it seems like, to wrap up this segment, that all these players we've just gone through have all benefited in each their own ways, and teams will be doing different moves around them. But I think it's definitely good opportunities and good work, and hopefully it'll make the teams and players stronger going down the stretch, approaching the trade deadline and further into teams making playoff runs. So Matt and Brad next are going to talk a bit about how they've started seeing teams and players differently during the drought of players that we've been experiencing in the league. So Matt, I'll let you get us started with your team that you've seen differently.
So a lot with this, with COVID going on, a positive that I've really noticed has been allowing teams to kind of find players that they can fill roles in depth. I think that's been the biggest thing, and I think that'll prove to be huge in the postseason. A team that has especially poked out in my mind would be the Heat. Heading into the season, didn't have the best thoughts on how able they would be to stay competitive if they were to have an injury to one of their primary guys. But with COVID, we've seen basically all of them miss some period of time, and they have managed to find a way to stay competitive.
For sure. And I think that'll prove beneficial down the stretch, as you said. Another team that we've seen losing a lot of players due to COVID is the Lakers, around the same time that Anthony Davis also sustained another injury. So Brad, I'll pass it over to you and how the Lakers have been dealing with the issues.
Yeah, so Lakers haven't had the best of luck, but I will remind you that Anthony Davis, I believe, is fairly injury prone, as well as their average age of their team is fairly high. So it's not that surprising that they've had a lot of injuries. I'll say that much. And I've actually looked at them worse since seeing this period of COVID because I don't see too much of a difference in the team whether you have guys like Avery Bradley and Malik Monken or Isaiah Thomas. It hasn't really shifted, in my opinion, and I haven't seen a change in that sense. With these, Ernst Stanley Johnson's another guy. I mean, they're talking about, I see all these things, people wanting them to sign Stanley to a contract, which I could see, but I don't think he's necessarily, it's because he's playing all that well. I think it's because they're really that thin. And it's just showing how bad their bench is and how thin they are after LeBron and AD, basically, and Russ.
Right, definitely. I think this is kind of the situation where a lot of people were kind of warning the Lakers about what's going to come about. I don't think they expected it to come about in the form of COVID, but I think when they put all their eggs in one basket with just all these old guys pushing them all together, it didn't necessarily work out by any means for them. And to wrap us up today, Matt, I'm going to let you talk a bit about how teams in the previously have taken role players for granted and maybe not developed their benches like they should and given these guys the opportunities. So I'll pass it over to you.
So typically what we see to start a season with rosters is what we will see throughout the duration of a season in a normal NBA season. Players normally play similar roles throughout the season unless injury comes in. But night to night lately, we've been seeing players in different roles with different responsibilities, being asked to do things that we typically may not see them do, whether it's a player that, is normally taking a back seat to a superstar that is all of a sudden being called up into a larger role and asked to try and carry a team to a win while that player is sidelined due to COVID protocols. Just seeing those type of guys that have been in the same situation for an extended period of time that we're now being able to see in different situations on a night-to-night basis. It's when a team's depleted like that, it gives them a chance to show what they're capable of. And that goes for not only the situation I talked about with a player who might be taking a backseat, but it could be a guy that's 15th on a roster that all of a sudden is asked to play starter minutes.
Right. The teams who've proven to be successful long-term have definitely been the ones who have used their role players, because like I said previously with the Lakers, can't put all your eggs in one basket with just stars or previous stars or anything like that. That won't be successful long-term. So before we close out today, Brad, any final words about what you're looking forward to for the coming season, despite all the COVID troubles?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad there's a season right now. I love watching the NBA. Me personally as a fan, I mean, I'm glad there's no pause just so I can keep watching the NBA because it's great. Even if we're not seeing all the typical players that we want to see. But no, just everyone stay safe, I hope. Cam, you've been a great host. Great job today. Matt, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you guys.
Definitely. It was great to have you two talk about this for all our listeners today. So that'll close us out today from the Writers Room podcast. Make sure you guys follow us on social media and check out our website. And we hope to keep making more awesome content for you guys.